I'm zooming. I'm panning. I'm not zooming, I'm panning.
You want me to open this at 7? Yeah.
If you guys can just stay where you are kind of and just stand, then I can kind of go that way. You what?
We can see everybody.
Oh, I'm gonna pan again. All right, let me get back to these guys and we're gone.
Everybody's feeling settled. We're gonna get started with this town board workshop. I think it's 7 o'clock here, but we have a workshop meeting here tonight, obviously, where we'll be reviewing our town of Pine Plains sewer feasibility study. My name is Rory Chase. I'm one of your outgoing town board members. Good to see you all here tonight. Everyone's feeling cozy. I just want to give a little brief background, I guess, for everyone on some of the whys and how we got here today a little bit. And I think you'll find my comments are broadly centered around our downtown, our town commercial district, which is the Film Zone. But I happen to live in that. Insights into what it's like to be there too, if I can share too. But as you all maybe know, we have some local businesses downtown, but that's some empty open spots down there too. We have a variety of different lot sizes, which is part of the problem. Some larger, maybe 3/4 acre lots, a couple half acre lots, many quarter-acre lots, 8 acres, lots downtown. So pretty small stuff. We'll do a bad job citing the year in which the county sort of changed their rules surrounding what's required for septic. But maybe our consultants can help me out. I would say it's been 20 years now, at least, maybe, that the county's rules have changed. And as you can imagine, most of the septics and enterprises and businesses are down 20 years. But at that time, 20 years ago, the engineering requirements for septic became more stringent. You had to sort of over-engineer what you were putting in place. You had to observe a number of setbacks from the property lines and other structures. You had to make sure you had 100% expansion room, which is one of the biggest components that can be challenged on those very small lots that we can have downtown. Our downtown, of course, being the place that we've identified for generations as being where we want our commerce to happen, where activities should happen. And where our comprehensive plan said we'd love to see our growth rather than out on the margin, but we'd love to see our downtown become vibrant and vital again. And in the many conversations we've had over the years, it seems clear that there are impacts something impacting the types of businesses that we get in our downtown, and the ways that new businesses can come in. And that the biggest impact, in my sense, and I think others too, see this is what's required on the county level for septic. How much space you need, how much room, if you have a property in the downtown that's been used as a diner for years, and then you want to change it to a cafe, the county might see that as a change of use, and you would have to then become conforming to what the new codes and standards are. We have a great downtown that has wonderful businesses in it, but they're sort of in the footprint that they can exist in. There's not much growth that can happen there, or at least certain types of businesses that require greater flow, or even a greater density of residences, which we find appearing in public mixed use structures that might have housing in the second story and a storefront on the first story, which is the kind of thing we see in platforms already. But a lot of the systems in our district already are too small for different uses that people might want to have. I'm going to cite my own self as someone who bought a house many years ago now, right across from X Market, that I would love to turn into a restaurant. And I did the work, getting an engineer to come in and help me figure things out, interacting with the county. I was able to get a variance for the setbacks. They were permitted me to have my expansion room all the way to the property line. They were permitted me to have expansion room under my garage if I wanted a quarter acre lot. And as it turned out, all I could fit in there, should I want to continue moving forward, with an 18 seats, which wouldn't be enough really for me to continue wanting to move forward. And I would imagine that experience has happened to many people every time they come in and have that. Here's a great downtown I'd love to be in. But as they get a little further into the process, they realize there's something holding them back. And that seems to be where the wastewater is going to go, where the extra space for the 100% expansion septic is going to go, et cetera, et cetera. I've got a few other little notes here that I'd have we had to mention too. But suffice to say that in our conversations, it seems as if the central wastewater system really could sort of be the simple solution that would allow enterprises to just tie in. There would no longer necessarily be questions about what type of business you could have, or 18 months down the line after you figure out what you could do, could you actually do with it, build it. And no longer would those sort of prohibitions keep place. It seems timely now to talk about this as a national conversation about infrastructure. And there's some things happening here in our own community. I'm thinking of like the Durst development largely, which is going to be should we see it happen, and I think we might, will bring in quite a number of new residents and a lot more commercial activity. I would love to see Pine Plains as a place where people who are going there might want to come into our downtown to enjoy all the different businesses we have. So suddenly there's this opportunity where there's some increased demand, which is also something we've been lacking here, I think, moving on the horizon, which is very exciting. And if we could imagine a downtown that had the capacity to service those different businesses, I'm rather confident we would see our downtown continue to grow. Our town zoning document already imagines the potential for center sewer district. It lists clearly increases in total lot coverage and density of habitation and use that could occur there. So just pulling this out, I look at the drugstore in town, I see the parking lot in the back, Web Travis is there, it's like a parking lot on our main street. I imagine there's a septic system somewhere under there, but I imagine they don't actually really know what's in place. Certainly a change of use of pharmacy wouldn't happen without something big going on. Suddenly, if there was a center septic, you could have those empty lots that are kept empty, maybe because of the septic there, or you need the expansion room. Suddenly, you could have a building there, and the wastewater could go somewhere else. You look at our downtown, there's like these little empty spots in there. Consultants will come through, and I've heard people mention more recently. It's like a beautiful mouth that's missing just a couple teeth down there sometimes with those empty spots. And I think we have a real opportunity to be able to move forward and see some of those spaces filled in. We've got a new town board coming in, which is really exciting. I hope they pick up the ball with some of these opportunities that are sort of in front of us in the near term as well. I guess, Pine Plains, we all know, has some of the best draining soils in the county, but that doesn't really matter. Ultimately, we still have to conform to their rules. You cannot be non-conforming when we want to move forward with different uses. we could take advantage of those great draining soils with some sort of centralized shared system for like a large leach field, drainage field, dealing with those wastewaters. And I get excited when I think about it downtown. You know, I'm terrified of the notion that threat analysis of downtown that can grow no more, that it's at its limit. We're seeing it at its peak, its most dense that it can be. I thrill to the notion of downtown that is more filled in, has more business activity in it, where people can come in and instantly perhaps even start a business, where we could have, you know, the largest landowner in town, maybe this diocese, which owns this huge Catholic church lot. At some point, they're going to want to do something with that. But we can see a housing development out there, I would imagine, that sees density right here in the hamlet, people that could walk to these businesses, hopefully. I'm trying to mention some of the why we've been having this conversation. The people that can talk about the how and what and where would be some consultants over here from Titan Bond. We've got Erin Moore, her associate here, who will lead a presentation today on our sewer feasibility study, which I'm sure was wonderful. But very excited to have you guys, and thanks for giving the floor. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Yeah, so I'm Erin Moore from Titan Bond. This is my coworker, Kyle Cartwright. And so that I can just sit back down. I think we're covered some very important items there. If you were with me back in July, one of the most important things we did was host a lot of stakeholders, meaning folks we had identified, businesses that were very likely desirable to be served in the sewer district. If you attended in July, you're going to hear a lot of the same information because our big point was to engage with stakeholders to make sure if there were comments, we could address those comments and then finalize the report. And so this is the presentation of the final report. It is a very early stage of wastewater feasibility. So just as was described, and certainly this is not a unique situation. There's many communities up and down the 22 corridor. The village of Red Hook right now is about to break ground on a very similar small system. There's a little bit bigger than what we're recommending here, but this is a very common theme in Dutchess County and Columbia County and Westchester County. Is small communities with little main streets that have no wastewater service. So in general, this is a common situation. Environmental regulations keep rolling. I think one of the things we're always referring to is there used to be not a separation between groundwater. Now there's 4 feet between your highest groundwater level that they want to see the bottom of the wastewater system. So that's a challenge here. Also, to keep that out. And so I'm going to present to you the finding of our study, but again, it's the feasibility study. It's the first level. Could you do it? Where would you do it? How much would it cost? And then there's a lot of different stages moving ahead as the town decides, is this something that you support moving forward or not? So just keep in mind, first pass. Can it happen? About how much? And what do we do from here? That's where we are. So I mentioned that. Let's just talk about our scope. First thing, do you need a sewer system? Is there parcels that absolutely there's really no other alternative? That's our first thing we're looking for. And then if the answer is yes, where, what do we do? So our tasks are sewer district need and then delineation. If there was a district, what would the boundary be? What parcels would you recommend be in it? The second item is wastewater flow development. So now you've got your area. How much wastewater does that generate? The third item is then, what do we do with it? Where do we take it? How do we get rid of it? And the fourth, putting it all together, that work for those first 3 preceding tasks into a report document, and how much will it cost? And that's the big one, certainly. So that's our tasks. What are the questions? So why complete the study? I definitely already went through a lot of that. Obviously, to maintain a healthy, vibrant downtown community center, keep that rolling. Increase foot traffic for businesses that want walk-by traffic. Attract other businesses and residents to the hamlet. In general, quality of life, we're interested in having a vibrant, healthy downtown and allowing for businesses that have tried in the past to expand to do so versus being told by the health department, no, you're done, you're at 18 seats and that's it, there's no additional. So why Pine Plains? Again, you're not in a very unique situation. There is a whole bunch of communities right now who are in a very, very similar. So I said Route 22, Millerton, Amelia, up in Columbia County, Copiague. But you're going to find yourself in between those. Bigger than Copiague, smaller than Millerton maybe, but really similar communities. Continuing, down the other way, Westchester County, Pound Ridge, if anyone's ever been there, and that's closer to the village of Red Hook, pretty big hamlet downtown areas that have absolutely no wastewater service and constantly finding themselves in their businesses struggling with the Department of Health. Particularly if you're a restaurant, so many end up in folded hall situations where they have stopped using their on-site system and their septic tank is just regularly being pumped, which is really expensive. So again, while there is no one size fits all for this, in general, there are many, many other communities looking at this very topic right now. So not unique. Why now also was mentioned. There is more funding for wastewater service than most people will say since the original Clean Water Act when many municipal wastewater systems got built. So there's multiple aspects of this. Clearly, infrastructure is a big deal right now, and there's many funding sources for infrastructure for economic development. But then there also is environmental considerations and your watershed, drainage area, and on-site systems, like our proposed system. They discharge to groundwater. Right now, Dutchess County and most other places in New York, they want 4 feet of soil to feel that it's treated appropriately before it joins the groundwater system. And generally, in most places, that 4 foot, you're not going to see under all seasons. So environmental considerations and also economic development, there is more funding and grant funding for improvements like this that we've seen in a long time and we probably won't see again for a while. So when this is a topic you've talked about over time, this might be the time to get it done in an economic manner. So it becomes an affordable project. And so why are we having this meeting? As I said, in July, we tried to engage and invite all the stakeholders, meaning folks who would probably be in the district and have an economic impact to their parcel. But at this point, the goal of the town is to communicate with the entire community. This is your town, even if there isn't a fiscal responsibility that would end up on your parcel. Do you want it? Is this something the community supports? And again, to the stakeholders, meaning the folks who would be in the district, if you're not enthusiastic and supportive of this project, then you need to communicate that to the town because that's the driving force is whose parcel and whose quality of life can be improved by this project. And the answer is no one's too keen on it, then speak that up and let it go because this is truly the type of project that you want a heavy, solid level of community support on to get this right and to get it done in a way that's going to benefit everybody. So I noted you can stay where we are for 2 seconds. We have those 4 tasks. What parcels may need wastewater service? How much flow would they produce? How to collect and treatment, and then how much would it cost? So I'm going to turn this over to Kyle for a bit to talk to those first 3. Who needs service, how much flow, and how to collect and treatment. And then you're going to get me back and I'll talk about costs and where we go from here. Take it away, Kyle.
Thank you, Erin. All right, so yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we kind of came up with the district, what it might look like, how we got there, and then what the treatment and collection system might look like. So this image here kind of shows the outline in the black dash dot of the proposed sewer district. And we kind of overlaid it here on top of the zoning districts here in the town, just because I think it kind of paints a bit of a clear picture of why we kind of ended up with this delineation. So we sent out a survey quite a while ago that the town did, and it came pretty clear on who would kind of benefit the most from this district, as we said. And Rory said it's really those businesses in the center of the town. It seemed like everywhere else the soils are great, and there generally isn't very many septic issues throughout the town. So we can see here, the proposed district essentially extends east over to Pine Street, or one parcel past that, north to the edge of the Hamlet Business Zoning District, and it includes a couple of parcels that the town acquired, and then west over to the parcel across from the Church Street, and then south down to El Guacamole. And we've kind of expanded it here, a few parcels here and there beyond the Hamlet Business Zoning District, based on some feedback from certain parcels that said they had some septic issues, or experienced some interest in connecting to the district itself. And then we've also not included a few parcels in the Hamlet Business Zoning District because they said they were not interested in connecting. And then these next few slides are just some aerial images that kind of show the same delineation essentially in each quadrant, if you will, around Main Street. Here's the one on showing the church property where we're proposing the septic system or the treatment system disposal field to be. And there is one, kind of looks strange here, but there is one parcel that was excluded in that preliminary district delineation because they indicated they weren't interested in connecting. And here's one final photo shows it from the corner over to approximately Pine Street. And there's one really tiny parcel there across Pine Street. All right, so just to kind of summarize kind of how we ended up there with that proposed district. Again, focused on the smallest parcels that are going to have the issues or potential issues with expanding their septic system or upgrading the businesses there. And again, that really just supports the comprehensive plan goals of keeping businesses within the center of the district, as Roy mentioned. So again, we're proposing the district around the Hamlet Business Zoning area, and then it's expanded a little bit here and there for those who have septic issues that want to connect to the system, and then excluded a few that did not want to connect to the system. All right, so then the next question is, once you got the district delineated, is how much flow would it be? That's kind of the big question from a design perspective when you're sizing these systems. So what we did is we used water meter data to kind of come up with the best, most accurate estimate for flow we can come up with. And essentially for this proposed district, we end up with 13,500 gallons per day for an average day design flow we call. And then we also consider future flow estimates. So, speaking a lot to what Rory said, we need to plan to have enough area to, in case things expand, you see some more businesses in the district. If there's some development at the church property, if businesses or restaurants have a few more seats, how much extra flow should we plan for? We came up with approximately 20,000 gallons per day. You need an area approximately for 20,000 gallons per day for treatment and disposal. All right, so get into kind of some of what the district or the actual system would look like. Starting first with the collection system. So what we're proposing is considered an alternative type collection system called a septic tank effluent system, which just means you still have septic tanks on each parcel that take care of the solids. And then all you're sending to the treatment system is the clarified water. So all the solid removal be at the parcels. That helps in a couple of things. Number one, you don't have to do solids removal at the treatment system, which just requires different process components It also allows you to have a little bit smaller collection system piping, which helps with costs as well, because you're only transporting it. And then, so for these type of systems, usually they're on the back side of the parcels. The pipe will run on the back side of the parcels, because that's typically where septic tanks are. This is subject to change, obviously, during final design, but this is kind of a preliminary layout. We're showing everything going towards the church property there. All right, and then treatment system. So once the flow makes it to the treatment location, what we're proposing is also considered an alternative treatment technology, instead of a kind of a conventional wastewater treatment plant, which some folks might think of when they think of a bigger community, a city where open, big concrete tanks. This is a little bit different, where it's a pretty simple system. It's essentially a series of partially buried tanks that have a media inside. So essentially the wastewater percolates over the media, and there's a biological growth that happens on the media, which helps treat the wastewater essentially. This is an image of one of the tanks up here on the right with the lids open. And then here's a picture of a very similar system installed down in Hyde Park. You can see the tanks are for the most part buried. There's some other buried tanks here. And typically all you need is a small building that houses some of the electrical components and equipment and a generator and some security. And then once the wastewater is treated by the treatment system, it will go to a subsurface disposal system. What we're proposing here is called a GGSF system, which stands for a geotextile sand filter. It's essentially a kind of a fancier leach field, like most of you probably have in your backyards. And then, so why this system? There's a number of reasons. Number one, low visual impact, and it works with community goals and the aesthetics. For the most part, everything's underground. This picture here on the left is a very similar system in Hillsdale. It's back behind the Stewarts in Hillsdale. Again, see, there's not much there to actually see. Most of it's underground. Also, these systems they're pretty simple to operate and maintain. You will need to pump out septic tanks just like you do now. That would be part of the district. The operator and the district, in this case the town, would set up a schedule, and the septic tanks would be pumped out on a schedule. Also, subsurface disposal is generally lower costs to build and to operate compared to a surface discharge. A surface discharge is more typical with a conventional treatment plant, where the effluent and the treated waste water goes directly to a stream, and that's less expensive because you have to treat it to a higher degree for a surface discharge. And one question we get a lot too is, why not just build a big septic tank and a big leach field, just kind of like most people have in their backyards, just a bigger version of it. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one is that when you have a treatment system in front of the disposal field, it allows you to have a little bit smaller leach field or disposal field, because you're not relying on the soil to actually treat the wastewater, microorganisms in the soil to treat it. You're just relying on the soil for disposing of the clean treated water. And more importantly, the treatment system also protects the disposal field. So if you, for example, somebody puts something in the septic system that they're not supposed to, or a lot of grease or oil, that could cause some havoc on the leach field. So the treatment system will help protect that. All right, so now we're getting to the where. We looked at a couple of locations during the feasibility study, but the one we're recommending is a treatment and disposal field at the church property, right behind us here. There's a couple of really good things about the property. Number one, it's large. It can support this size system. It's very close to the hamlet center, and it has really good soils. It seemed like the soils are pretty good throughout the town here. Has really pretty fast percolation rates, which is 1 to 2 minutes, which is good. It just means you can have a smaller footprint for your disposal field. It also allows for the most part, a gravity collection system to the treatment system, which just helps reduce costs because you're not pumping to the treatment system. And a couple of negative things, or not really negative things, but challenges with that location. So we did a couple of test holes, and generally there was some signs of high seasonal groundwater, about 30 to 36 inches below grade, it seemed like. And like Aaron mentioned, that's just a challenge with meeting the requirements for the bottom of your effluent pipe. So that high seasonal groundwater level, Dutchess County typically likes to see 4 feet of separation there, which will be hard to achieve. We won't be able to achieve it here exactly with the soils that are on site, which just means you're gonna have to bring some soils in to mound it up a little bit to achieve that separation distance. And the only other thing to be seen as a challenge is right now the parcel isn't owned by the town. All right.
Thanks. Okay, so I think that's the quick summary of who's in it at this stage, feasibility stage. So there's a lot of flexibility. And again, this is a continuous community communication process of as this develops, there is certainly border parcels or other parcels where people speak up and that this would be something they're interested in. There's nothing locked in at this stage. This is where we stand at this first phase. Is this a good process to continue or not? And where it would be based on our recommendations. And we looked at several parcels around the town. Groundwater elevation is consistent, certainly, but from a space perspective, there's the most flexibility with a larger, obviously, space to work with than a smaller space. And additionally, then what would we do once we got it there? So then how much would it cost? So Kyle hands that back to me. I get to do that part. Thanks, Kyle. The total cost is $4.2 million. It includes a reasonably hefty 30% contingency number, and also financing costs. So 0 grants, a financing figure, and land acquisition costs. So we've been very, very generous with this number. This is not a low ball, let's just say. We've really tried to put everything in there. So again, that includes engineering costs, full construction costs, land acquisition, 30% contingency, and then all the financing issuance costs, assuming you would go through a state financing process and would be able to get at least low interest loans. So that it's a conservative estimate. It results in an annual payment on debt of about $200,000, $205,500 a year on the town. So is this affordable? The EPA says it should be less than 2% of your median household income for it to be affordable. And that would be less than $1,158 a year for a single family home. The New York State Comptroller says it should be less than essentially $700, $696, plus hookup fees to be affordable. And so at this rate, where we are is, we could certainly hold, there's so few single family houses right now in the district, we could keep that at around $1,100 a year. Small commercial though is around $3,000. And in general, if we just do the simple math, the cost per year divided by 32 parcels, you can see we're around $6,420 per parcel per year. So we're not there yet. We're not at the affordable level. So what do we do? What do we do to make this affordable? And as I said when I started talking, this is the time right now where there has been more dollars and potential grant funding, so not loans, grant funding for infrastructure and wastewater. This report is one of the tools we use to start pursuing that funding. All the grants in New York State, the report must be done in a very specific format. This report has been done in that format to meet the requirements of any funding agency that the town can pursue. So you've got a tool in your quiver now to look for grant funding. And again, what we presented assumes some good level of low interest financing, but no grants at all at this point. So USDA rural development, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, the WIA, it's open right now. The town has not gone forward and formed a district. That is a huge funding source that definitely will be used as we talk about the infrastructure funding bill. And community, Dutchess County Community Development. But right now, what we have pursued was back in July. We did submit to the EFC, is the Environmental Facilities Court. It's the funding arm of New York State DEC. So they actually have it divided up into two agencies. And so there's a water quality improvement program grant. They have not decided on any grants. It would be great if I could say, oh, you already achieved the grant, but no, they have not made any phone calls or made any decisions on this grant. All these applications that were done in July, but we did submit to try to start this process because the grant funding process is absolutely one of the quality of your project, but there's a little bit of squeaky wheel too. So you apply often and with great enthusiasm, and you wear them down eventually. So the town has a really great track record right now. This entire project was funded by grants. So through Dutchess County and through New York State DEC provided the funding for all the work that Kyle and I have done. By taking that step, spending the grant money, believe it or not, often communities apply for grants and then end up declining it and doing nothing with it. By doing the work and showing you follow through, that actually elevates the town in your fundability, because it's shown if you are allotted money, you're not in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months going to turn around and say, you know what, no, thank you, we're okay. It makes you more appealing as a fundable entity when you've shown you'll take grant money and do what you were supposed to do with it. So that's a good track record for the town in your ability to qualify moving forward in the future. There's some other methods, you know, we'd like to consider in conversations with Dutchess County. So there's a relationship between Dutchess County and New York State. Generally, a system like this is a state governed system, but in Dutchess County, they review this system. 4 foot is a Dutchess County item. It's not actually the state requirement for separation distance. Given the quality of the wastewater effluent, it'd be really nice to revisit this topic and have a good conversation with Dutchess County, because 4 foot is equal to about $100,000. So that's a place that would be at least a nice discussion on, can we talk about 3 foot? Can we, based on the quality of the effluent, and see if there's some savings there with not having to bring in soil to the site. And that also has grading costs. Picking up additional users that are far-flung are not cost-effective. But if there were additional users very near to the site that are easy to pick up, that helps make spreading the log around, right? With easy, cheap way to connect. More users equal more people funding the project equals a lower cost overall. So if there's additional users to pick up who want to be in the district and are close by, are not, you know, 2 miles over the hill to pick up, that can help lower the cost of the system as well. So that's definitely, as far as, you know, those things where we're very focused on making sure the town knows your opportunities and how you can bring the cost down lower. But at this point, getting in line for infrastructure funding, that's what's going to make this certainly an affordable project. So we did do, as I've mentioned a few times, a stakeholder engagement session that in July? April. I don't know what's happened to this year. It's gone really fast. We talked with the proposed owners, so and And there is, at this point, a pretty substantial level of support in the hamlet, in the business district, among the folks who are interested in this. If we can get it affordable, who'd be willing to pay for this. So that's the important part, is those who would see the bill, see the value they would get out of that bill. That's very important to establish. Certainly additional, some of the important feedback is there needs to be a lot of good, close coordination with the church parcel owners to understand what they plan to do on their parcel and what we would need as far as area on the parcel to make this all work, and see if there's a great symbiotic relationship between their needs and the town's needs and how they envision that parcel to be used. So that is a very important next step moving forward, to make sure we can come up with a plan that meets everyone's needs. And we noted it. The development that was mentioned is not in any way anticipated to be connected to this system, but it is important to note that there's a very, and it's, I mentioned Amelia. They have a huge development that was built very close to their downtown, but their downtown isn't able to take great advantage of it because they don't have wastewater service, and some of their businesses are very limited. And so that's a very interesting sort of similar situation where you have a nearby development project can increase your foot traffic in the very center of your hamlet, if that's desirable. So we've noted that there could be increased nearby population, but the plan in no way would be based on serving that development or that group. So we've noted that there could be some great availability for some additional people who want to be in the hamlet, but that this wastewater system would not serve that development. So what's the next step? As I said, funding, we applied for an opportunity of funding. We can't apply for the WIA because the next step is district formation. So what would that look like? Again, the biggest point here is to get this topic out. What are the comments? What are the thoughts? What is the district? Who really wants to be in the district? What could we develop? And then a report that's a very truncated version of what we've done. Who's in it? How much does it cost? What are we going to do? So succinct document, but it becomes the legal basis and it's required by the state of New York. It's called the MAP plan report. It identifies, again, all the costs, who's in it, and then there's a way of engaging the folks that are in the district. And there's a few different methods to do this. One is by petition, which means every single parcel can come in and sign something maybe in town hall where there's notary and identify, yes, I would like this, or no, at this price, or no, I wouldn't. And then the alternative is to do it in a vote. From a cost perspective, it's best to do it when there's a vote going on anyway, just so you don't have to set up a whole voting implementation. But the point is that the New York State district formation wants to engage every single parcel owner who would be paying. I guess, I assuming this goes without saying, but New York State rules for towns, you cannot charge anyone who is not being served. So any resident that isn't being served has no financial implications from another person being served. Just to make that clear, if you're not being served, you're not being charged. There's no fee that would happen to a person. So the MAP planner report document gets established, and it can set a rate. Just this is what our rate's going to be, and then it's the town's job to keep going after grant funding. So it creates the district, but if the funding doesn't come through, if we're not able to secure it, it doesn't obligate the town in any manner to proceed, especially at a rate that's uncomfortable for its users. So there's a lot of caveats here in keeping this process moving, but that includes, I don't want to say escape mechanisms, but yeah, if it's not affordable, there's nothing obligating the town to continue to proceed on a project that's not affordable for its users. However, for instance, couldn't apply for WIA because you need a district to be formed. If the district isn't formed, that grant source is not available to you. So there's good ways to make sure residents and parcels are being protected from a financial perspective, but still qualify to go after the grant funding that would make this affordable for everyone.
So to be clear, you can form a district without committing to the process while you look to.
You can commit to a number, Rory, so you can say, what is our number that's affordable? And it can sit until you can get yourself to that number that's reasonable for everyone to go for. And you're not committed to go ahead until that number's memorialized in that legal document that goes to the New York State Comptroller. So it doesn't commit you to proceed. You're essentially, as a town committee, we're going to figure out how to deliver this system for this dollar value per different users. And every single parcel that's in it has to have a number associated with their annual fees. So let's say we started the district formation process. If we started it right now, just to try to get a timeline, by April of 2022, the town should be pretty far along into that process. And then if you roll right in, so this training just started going, there'd be wastewater system operational in 2024 is what I estimated at this point. So it's not a overnight thing. Definitely, we're engineers, but I can't. We don't wave wands and make wastewater. Although I wish I could sometimes. That'd be a great superpower. So that's essentially where we are. I also brought these pictures, but I think I'd like to just show this again. So this is Hillsdale. I like this quote from their website. So a series of town-led initiatives in the year after 2000 helped Hillsdale experience something of a revival that continues to expand and reshape the town. For example, after decades of concern, Hillsdale leveraged grants to fund the development of a hamlet sewer district. Years in the making, the result was a 21st century, much admired infrastructure that's enabled new businesses to launch and continues to attract new residences and businesses to the hamlet. So this was in the center of Hillsdale. That was a store that rented VCR tapes, even when that no longer was a thing, with residential above, and the tattoo parlor. So I don't know about you, but I am an ice cream parlor girl. And so that's an ice cream parlor now, and the general store, and there's retail on all levels of that. So that really expanded this square footage. So at this time for the system, so this is immediately leading up to that area we were looking at, all residential. So right now, this closest building that's hidden behind the tree, that's residential, but every other building you can see heading up towards the ice cream parlor and the general store, they've all got small businesses happening. I think I've got one more. Nope, that's it. There's a few different, because I didn't have a picture of the brewery. That's strange for me. The Rojan Brewery in Hillsdale also is connected to the sewer system. So I'll have to think of some reason to get a picture of that. So
They got that Crossroads restaurant, which is so delicious there too.
yeah, yes.
And I
Absolutely.
talked to that guy too. He said to me, no way he would have started that business if it was not center sewers or those. I'm sure that's the case for all those other businesses.
So that's where the project is. That's the steps we've taken to get through it. I really invite any questions that we can, and also it doesn't have to end here. If there's questions that involve us taking a look at something and coming back, we're happy to do that. I think it's a solid presentation of the work we've done, but really the next step depends on the enthusiasm of folks in the hamlet. If this is something you're interested in pursuing, and then there is a lot of path forward to do so. Sure.
You mentioned other sites that you looked at,
Yes.
and my concern is the large property right in the middle of the hamlet, prime real estate potentially. We're concerned about that. What are some of the other sites that you took there?
So, it's very important to be at least proximately close. So we looked at some sites that we could do surface water discharge to. They were really challenging from a cost perspective, the surface. So that could be a much smaller parcel, right? It was just really challenging. So many of the flowing waters here go to impounded water bodies. So that's not great. From an on-site perspective, We had reached out to the school. The school originally thought they would be interested in at least us taking a few test pits, and they ended up declining that. But based on the soil mapping, we would assume that we completely consistent with what we saw on the church parcel. And then the other parcel is behind Rory's property. It was a wooded parcel. If you look straight down the town, you see it. There almost looks like there was a sort of looks like a horse paddock or a track there. Great, same soils, really small parcel, really tight. So, but really similar to
That's it.
those were the parcels we could get access to. We just don't go on folks, property and dig test pits. Those are the ones for on-site that were close enough.
Did the church say that they were willing to sell the property?
So there is absolutely communication with the church now. And they have an interest in seeing this, but that's really the important next step is if the town, we're all in the same position, right? If the town's committed, they have interest, but we've got to come up with a plan that meets everyone's needs together. So there's certainly been communicated with quite a bit. And
There was introduction made to the guys, they would put the town, I think it's okay to mention it, but Alexander Durst, all in favor, but reached out to whoever he knew with the diocese, and they instantly got back and said, okay. So whereas that conversation hasn't really happened over the last 30, 40 years, something really in the last 12 months.
the Archdiocese has a team from an engineering team from their perspective, figuring out what might be the best use of that parcel. And then, of course, we're trying to help from where we stand, which is in the preliminary stage with the wastewater usage. But there is a very open line.
How much of the parcel you're planning on taking?
It all depends. If right now we've assumed based on the zoning at the time that they would develop 48 units. Now, if they want to develop more units, we would need more land. So there's a symbiotic, there's a relation, an inverse relationship. And so they need with their team to say what we'd like to do on the parcel. And then from a wastewater perspective, they already have preliminary guidance from us. If you increase your number of units, how much additional area we would need, but they've got to come to their conclusion. And that's a great open dialogue that we're certainly hoping to further. So if they figure out what they want, they have already a good sense of how much they need to be.
3 acres, 5 acres, that kind of amount, as far as you had to estimate the amount of space required for.
How detailed? I think I can make it appear very.
Okay. I thought you could.
Do you have it on the slide? Put it on the slide.
I think on the street side, they would imagine.
Back to show. So this is what I mean by inverse relationship. So right now, base flow 13.5, that there's no development on the church property. If in the report, we included 48 bedrooms at the property, and that's included in the 20,000 gallons per day based on the size that we need, which is around total of 5 acres. If their requests for number of bedrooms go up, the amount of acreage that we would need increases. So they understand this relationship. And now they need to decide what kind of units fitting in with the town zoning would they like to see. And then they understand how much additional space it might require from whatever portion of the parcel. There's front, there's back. The parcel is super consistent with soil. Wherever it makes the most sense, being good offsets from neighboring residents, you just gotta, they have to figure out what they want, and then we can figure out how to accommodate it. But, it's kind of a chicken or the egg.
That church lot has ingresses too, right next to the town library and onto, through the multiple places where they were to create a flow through there. That's crazy.
Rory, I know, so
If the church says no, where do you go from there?
we absolutely, you have flexibility, you can get up to 20,000 any other parcel we looked at, but that's it. That's the line in the sand there. There's no additional flexibility. And then that will
increase then if you have to do the alternate.
yeah, there's definitely, we have that. But if they're interested, that's the most desirable parcel from a gravity collection perspective and from a.
And who pays for the park, whatever they're gonna buy? The town has to pay for this property that the churches
I think
might
that's,
sell.
I think that's the negotiation. and
The sewer district would pay for it.
Oh, yeah, not.
Sewer
the town.
district.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
People who are
Certain.
with services would have to pay for that parcel also.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, and that was part of the process, that land acquisition.
But that's also what you would be looking for grants for.
100%.
So, you know, the grants, if you got grants to fund this infrastructure, then the cost goes down.
Yes, so that's it.
right. We
You gotta
gotta
find out if the town wants this first. Put a lot of energy into something before you find out if the town even wants this. You know, you really-
Well, this energy was paid for by grant. So.
But you seem to be saying you're not asking the town either, you're only asking the people that it involves.
Oh, no, moving on to the next step is the town decision. When it comes to
So every
going to the
resident
map
of
plan
my
report,
place.
to formally do that vote to actually legally form the district, those who vote are the persons who are served. But at this point, deciding to move on even to that stage, that's gotta be your feedback. to your
So only the people at the best get to vote whether or not
Yes,
they want.
absolutely.
But the town people who live may not want to see that, even though they're not affected directly, they don't get to vote. Like
Not-
neighboring people that might not want to look at that out their back door.
Absolutely. They're first here, but then I see you and I see someone here too. The yellow mask.
Barcelona or the,
All part of the cost, and we've seen 100% septic tank replacement. If someone's just done it and it's a new tank, we would leave that sit. But right now, it's assuming every parcel will use septic tank. The pumping of that tank is absolutely a part of the district O&M cost. You wouldn't want, not that we all don't trust each other to do the right thing on septic tank pumping, but you don't want that left in homeowners' hands. That would be part of the district operation costs. Oh, yeah. Over here and then back.
Is this whole plan seems to be contingent upon affordable housing being put in town. This plan seems to be accommodating, if we want funds for affordable housing, then you have to have in place sewers, okay? Now, I just a minute, okay, excuse me, sir, you're rude. You're out of order. I have a floor. I have a floor. Now, I've been sitting, I've been thinking, which is dangerous, but I was thinking that there is something else, that another plan that has to be rethought, that would, for a call for a sewage treatment plant. So far, we're thinking of putting housing and everything, which is really not the job. It's okay, it's, you know, people are patronizing the businesses, then maybe yes. We have to think in terms of a system that feeds, that is self-sustaining, that money, that provides money for the system. Now, putting a sewage treatment, I've studied sewage treatment plants for over 50 years, all right? My graduate study was all done this. I toured, I don't know how many sewage treatment plants, you know, I know what they're like. And it could expand. Okay? Now, if you decide, if we don't put affordable housing in town, you would not need the treatment plant. You would not need the treatment. Pine Plains has the highest amount of natural percolation, being what physically what we are, where we are. Trying to get church property is a long haul to try and get that, and to put that in town, that is unsightly. Okay, and I think we are going to have to rethink this. I came up, I took a drive through town. I live on Main Street, North Main Street. I took a drive in town and I saw 200 quarter-acre plots in this town. 200 quarter-acre plots. I come from a town where every quarter-acre plot was developed. The incorporated village of Northport, Long Island. Now, we have room to expand on those quarter-acre plots. People sell off their quarter-acre house here, there. We have 200 quarter-acre plots spread out that can dissipate the water and not impact our lake. It was going to impact our lake if you put it on that church property. It is contiguous with the lake. And it used to flood, it was a lake with ice skating on it. Okay, one more thing. Tom Carvel is kind of we're not thinking now where we come in. Is located outside of town, a food processing plant, and then we need the sewage, the treatment plant with a sewage, food processing plant, which generates capital. 200 people in town adding their jobs, and not just the school system, which is 62% of this town, which I am paying, educating our children, great, but it's not producing anything. We need sewage treatment plant, and we see small family farms are dropping back up again. That's where you're going to put your plant. And Mr. Durst, he's proposing 900, which will be located. We will have the population to patronize business. And incidentally, 3 businesses require the smallest customer base: food, hairdresser, gasoline. So I don't know how this fits in, but just trying to make some sense out of this. And we've got some people, not just I told why. I said, you want to see a sewage treatment plant in your backyard? You know?
Can I just ask what parcel?
And I'm sorry, thank you for the rule.
What parcel, you mentioned a parcel flooding. Can you tell me what parcel?
A parcel I would say that I would talk to Mr. Pierce.
You ice skated on a parcel. Which parcel flooded? You said you used to ice skate on a parcel.
Yes, the church property, the church property, I will name the individual.
People didn't believe that the groundwater, someone commented that you did not believe the groundwater was that close to the surface.
Yes.
And it's very clear from a soil morphology standpoint, it is. So I just love that you observed that, because we feel well vindicated that you said it for us.
I'm speaking the language,
I feel vindicated.
it was Helen Nutter, 75 years ago. There was a study that was done in the paper. The story was about comparing my daughter's childhood, my daughter-in-law's childhood, with the childhood of Helen Nutter. Now it's more than 75 years ago. But that, like, people were talking, people are alive, but this was back here. This was like.
Great, well, thank you very much. And I think we've all heard, thank you very much.
I just kind of said,
Wait, you know what? Yes, no, you're it, yes. Sorry.
Quick question on transporting the liquids from
Yes.
individual.
Yes,
Is that done through gravity
yes.
or pumping station?
Gravity feed, no pumping stations. There's
With only a 2-foot
Yeah, once you get down to the parcel itself, the general treatment system is a pump flow system, it's a dose system. So you have a tank down there, and then slowly goes to the actual treatment facility. But no, from a gravity perspective, you can get from here to there. Generally, that would be the approach. We have not completely designed the system. Why is that? Well, that's our preference. Why? When it comes to wastewater treatment facilities, solid handling is often the source of biggest pain in the butt, the most operator problem, what produces odors. You have a wonderful small solid handling system. That's called a licensed septic hauler. It also means that a single family house that had maybe 2 people living, let's say, they don't need as much, they need to be checked upon, but not much attention as a restaurant. So you can really strategically time your solids removal. And then we've got smaller diameter pipes, cleaner wastewater, and we're just disposing of the effluent at the site. So from a dollar to dollar standpoint, taking all the solids down to one location for keeping the solids in the individual tanks and being on a standard rotation of pump and haul of just removing solids, the liquids moving onto the site is really cost effective. And from a usage perspective and an operation and management perspective, the most cost effective way.
Is it possible you might have to have 1 or 2 collection tanks in neighborhoods that then pump to the center
Oh, yeah.
chamber?
If we've got some multiple type parcels really near each other, that could, and we haven't assumed that, we've assumed every parcel a single tank. But if there's a place where there's multiple type parcels together, one tank with one pump with one gravity effluent system, that might be the best solution, and also be more cost effective. Just again, we're preliminary. That's a design decision. At some point, if this proceeded and we were lucky enough to be the engineers, one of us would be in every single basement. You got to look at every basement, look at every single tank, and really design it custom. Yeah, watch out. Watch down.
Can you speak to Pat and Eddie's concerns about visual impact or other ways to mitigate maybe potential visual impacts of the site itself?
I can talk, but if anyone's interested, what's better than going to a wastewater treatment plant?
Yeah,
So this one is obviously Hillsdale's super easy. Anytime you want to go to Hillsdale, I'd love to meet you in Hillsdale. I think half the DPW needs their lunch down in the treatment plant. This is the leaching field for Rochester, Vermont. The Hillsdale, the Hyde Park system, they left from an operation, Dutchess County Water and Wastewater, because of snow. Because of snow, they left this a little proud, so it was easier. But that tank stands at your knee, and now those bushes are a year old, and you don't see the tanks. That's the entire 35,000 gallon tank.
So the profile is like only 2 feet above ground.
Yeah, it's just at your knee because from
bushes,
so they
pretty low bushes.
yeah. So
So is there an odor that comes out of it, or there's no odor?
I'd love for you to be like, come. They're
Not this style, the big ones you're thinking of,
yeah.
but these don't really have the smell.
Yeah.
The solids are staying at your house.
The
Yeah.
solids
Most of
are
the
staying
water
at-
is passing down this far.
Yeah, and the solids are where that's really where the more nuisance maintenance comes from. If anyone's septic tank is pumped, you know what that's like, and we're keeping that there.
If the church did want to get involved, I presume they would want to develop somehow their property too. So if this were there, it wouldn't be the focal point of what you see up there. There'd be maybe a commercial corridor along Church Street and then some type of housing development on the interior. This wouldn't
And
be.
everyone who's involved in their septic system have to be examined and made sure that they're in working order and everything.
Generally, right now, from a cost perspective, we assume it's
Because a
all.
lot of the places in town are old.
You have to put it in the tank. You
Yeah,
can't. You have a
right
secret
now-
pit, you have to put it in the
Yeah,
tank.
and that's expensive.
Oh yeah, right now, brand new tanks everywhere is included. But if someone just put a tank in and there's a
Right, right.
brand new beautiful concrete tank, we're gonna look at it and then say, it'd be a shame or this thing, so.
I wonder if you could, you sort of share, I don't know, worst case scenario, but what it could cost us, the most it might cost us, but do you have any ways of estimating if some of these grants were to come through, how the cost would total build-up cost might be free.
I think that's a great follow-up, Lori, as far as, I'm happy to present that. I've seen people, engineers, we all do different ways of presenting things. The last thing that I want to have happen is paint this picture and then the funding doesn't come up, or it goes out to bid and it's way past. So I'm sorry, I know it's maybe the more conservative way is less attractive or enthusiastic, but I'd rather you know where I think the price tag is right now in a more conservative sense than underball it and be very disappointed. So I realize we can look at it from many different perspectives, but I'd rather give you where I think the top end is. Here's a gentleman being really patient in the back.
I just wanted, I wonder if you wouldn't mind reiterating, I think it's helpful, sometimes facts need to be repeated a few times to sink in. So nobody in like neighborhoods behind the high school or, on Poplar and such, knows the fact that in terms of the cost, right? None of those people are gonna have to pay for this. The town is not paying for this. Can you explain that again?
And it's New York State municipal law. It's not what your town's picking to do. It is the New York State municipal law. Only parcels served can be billed. We can talk about different ways to bill it. There's a whole bunch of different ways towns do that billing, but the only people who can pay the bills are the parcels being served.
So it's
None
just
of
like
this
a water
debt
district,
service. Yeah.
which is at the same.
No, the town can pursue grants for that property, which is what I'm recommending, but you can't put the cost on a parcel that's not. I think it's, what do you think it was, Kyle? Let's go there, but then orange jacket is announced.
I understood you earlier. I thought I heard you indicate there are two votes. Well, kind of two stages within this community to approve. One is, the people or properties who are in the district signing it up, saying, yeah, we're, yeah.
Or a vote. There's two alternatives.
Oh, that's an alternative.
Petition or referendum.
Yep. Thank you.
But if the people who are included in the district sign on, then there's no further vote needed.
Correct.
But on the other hand, no one else is affected in terms of cost. Only the people who sign on.
If there was a referendum, it would be the same. It would just be a different process, more cumbersome.
Got it.
And so when I was talking about there's
But only the
two,
people in the district will vote, not the whole thing.
there's a more informal process right now, which is the town and any members of the town providing feedback to the town leadership saying, we do feel like this should proceed. Let's see what the next step is, or we're supportive of the next step. And that's informal feedback you give your town leadership and the wastewater committee, and to encourage, yeah, I think this is a good thing or not a good thing for the town. When it actually comes to the last stage of the district formation, there is a formal vote with a document that's legally filed with New York State. And that's the formal acceptance process that just the parcels impacted financially would provide their feedback.
But does establishing the district?
Oh, you just totally jumped in there. What?
Does establishing the district require a vote from the town?
Just the parcel served. To establish the district, the parcel served.
Yeah, proposed.
You should kick him in the knee. What was your, sorry? I'm not advocating for that.
I think most of you know me. I've been involved in town government for at least 40 years, including serving here in the planning board, the chair of the zoning board of appeals, the chair of the trails committee, town assessor, and town supervisor for 6 years. I served at the county level of government for over 30 years as a professional planner, including the director of the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority for 15 years. I probably worked on almost every comprehensive planning that the town has undertaken in the past 40 years. We've spent countless hours in meetings. It was with surveys asking the community what they want for Pine Plains. Each time an answer comes back, we want almost what we have, a small, compact community center where we can walk to our services, be they schools, stores, post office, businesses, restaurants, and government offices. We do not want sprawl along every highway leading to the town center. The only way you can have this compact development is to have central water and central sewer. When I was the town supervisor, we established the Pine Plains Water District with an abundance of grant assistance. It is now the time to establish a public sewer district, and the timing couldn't be better with the just passed infrastructure bill. I can tell you in the past, there was a time, the engineer talked about it, and this goes back to my early days, the same type of money became available. The feds paid 75%, the state paid 12.5%. Every community could have had sewer for 87.5% grant funding. And I worked with multiple communities throughout the county where I would go in and they would lament because they were larger and they were going through some of the same stuff that we are and say, geez, why did we stop? Some of them stopped at this point because there were people who said, oh, geez, we don't want sewer. And, and then 5 or 10 years later, they're going, we were so foolish. And I guess what I'm saying to the town is go through, set whatever the affordable number is, form the district, go for the grant money because this only comes about every generation or several generations. We are about to hit it at the jackpot time to do it. This is the time to form the district, set whatever your affordable number is. I don't care if it's 300, 400, 500, 600, whatever that number is. You don't have to go forward if you don't get it. Form the district and go forward. This is the time. And so I really encourage the town to, pursue the grants, set your number, and go for it. There's no time to mess around any longer. Get it done.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Who's in charge, right?
Sorry.
Or is in charge?
Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to know that how much space would you be-
Oh, and that's the graph we had up. So right now, to have expansion, we've said 5 acres. If they're looking towards with the difference in the zoning that we're spoke about, the additional density, if there's more bedrooms, we need more space to expose the wastewater. And so that's the graph, that relationship. So right now, it's 5. And we put a preliminary map together. That 5 acres can shift to wherever it makes sense, and it's got to be a consolidated effort. We just can't. That all the soil is not the same. You got to have offsets from all the neighbors, obviously. But certainly we can work with their planning too. They have a concept, I'm sure. We know what we need. I'm sure we can figure out a way for everyone.
Ariel here, sorry.
And also that gentleman right there and this one right there. So,
The alternative site is the property behind your and mine.
Behind your house there,
Right. And that's also, that side in 5 acres as well. What's the cost, size, and system difference between the church site and that site?
it's just fittable, it's super tight. So it's a less desirable.
It would need Dan Adams' empty flag lot as well, which did not. But that made it hard, that we reached that juncture earlier.
You think we could do the 13.5 and 20 is really cheap. The 13.5 one. It's just less, soils were very similar, just a less desirable parcel. So challenging for all the side offsets and this type.
So if you only do the 13.5 system there without Dan Adams.
Karen will know specifically. what I
We can
think
squeeze the
that's-
13.5, but it gives us very limited flexibility, which is why it's not recommended. So it's a backup plan, we can revisit, but it's just not.
that limit the amount of businesses then?
It wouldn't be able to service development at the Catholic Church lot, for example, but I think it could perhaps service the commercial
Yeah,
district. without the
13.5
residential.
has expansion, it's just not much. So then if you add additional parcels and add some, that's how we're making sure there's additional. Because it is based on actual usage rates of water, not, some communities don't have either, right? And so then you have guidelines that you use to estimate per business, and those are very conservative. But in this case, we actually have water usage rates and then could expand upon them to escalate to the future. But the question is, you only get so, 13.5 would not be bad, and it would allow, businesses to expand to a certain level. But 20 is really a number that could meet everyone's needs and
You
add
want
personal
to
housing.
do it, if you could do it, you want to do it and be done with it and have it be the size of it.
Well, that's 13.5, that's water usage now.
No, water usage plus additional attention. So we've added, we've used the peak month for every parcel or the peak usage, so we have it, it's not average business. So,
Multiple of that.
yeah.
Not sure who's next, but maybe Jim. Here.
Just to give folks an idea of size, the town center where the condos are, they're approved for build out of 48 units, they have about 12 acres. Church lot is 20 acres. So if you put 48 units on 12 acres, you're not gonna. Just to give a sense of the size.
Well, minus what you might need for the product.
This gentleman.
I think you've treated most of what I wanted to clarify. You gave a baseline figure of 13.5 gallons per day, and I thought that was for the existing users of the proposed district, with a comfortable fudge factor bringing up to 20,000. Now, is the church
20,000 also includes 48 bedrooms at the church.
okay?
Which
Because
was
when you
the-
first introduced the parameters you were using to set up the size of the infrastructure that you were going to put into the potential district, it sounded like you were going to allow the increase from 13,500 to 20,000 in order to enable some of those gaps to be developed, some of those unsightly parking lots to be built. Driving retail. And foot traffic, which I've never seen. I've lived in that place for 20 years and I've not seen much foot traffic. People drive to the post office, they don't walk. They drive to Stewart's, they don't walk. They drive to X, they drive to the post office. So I think that the term foot traffic is important.
I'll just take after that one.
I will. So if it's built for 20,000 capacity and the church puts 48 units on the back of their lot, then there's really not much additional capacity for increased commercial development.
No, I'm sorry if I'm not saying it as clearly as I should. Everything has additional development capacity
Right.
plus that in the 20,000. But no, none of these scenarios include no additional wastewater from the hamlet. Everything has additional capacity.
Eric.
Every scenario will look.
Do you know what your flow rate for those 32 properties is now per day? If it's 13.5, do you think it's like 8,000 or something? 5,000?
Why don't we? Yeah.
I think the
No, no,
13.5
I-
figure has
I-
significant room over top of our existing flow already.
We'll take a peek, but I can send that by, let's look at that, and I can clarify that in email, and you kind of down to it.
Well, each property should have meters, so meters, we should be able to cross-reference the meters for those 32 properties, to know what it is, excluding all of these things at the bank.
Because generally from wastewater size, they use size and average flows. So to come up with a base flow, we pick the peak scenario, And then we added an additional factor of safety on it, and that got to the 13.5. And then we added more factor of safety and 48 units to get to this one. And what was it, maybe like 19 something? Yeah, but 20 is a good design number, you know, so you're always rounding up as an engineer. But no matter what, we're not being flagrant with our recommendations as far as we've got twice the amount of flow as you need, but there's definitely helping wiggle there to fudge factor. That's an engineering.
Pat, you got another one?
Yes, were you already contacted if you're in that district?
My
I
understanding.
got a letter in mail. Letter in mail.
Okay, so if you're one of the 32 in that district, you would have already been contacted.
That's, so from the engineers not do that, the town, we did that, my understanding is they talked it. They're
Okay.
involved in going after talking to everyone, from my understanding.
Thank you.
I'm calling on someone.
Okay.
Suppose you build this. And you have the boundaries that you talked about. 10 years from now, there's a need to tie into a sewer system for some reason. Is it possible, or is this system, once it's set up, that's as much as it's gonna handle?
Yeah, it's a very interesting sort of yin and yang question, right? So of course, we don't want to design anything that has no flexibility. And the goal would be, especially, you know, a contiguous parcel on the outside, they decide they need to join, that capacity is there. But also, your comprehensive plan would not like to facilitate a hamlet like expanding out either way on both crossroads. So it's a really sweet spot we've got to find. Enough capacity for those scenarios and for businesses to expand, but also not so you're encouraging development that's not consistent with your plan.
Are you
So I
thinking
think we're in a
of
good, I think we need a
residences
solid
or
recommendation.
commercial business? Are you imagining residences that might want to tie in or commercial business? Oh.
I mean, if one of these parcels close by, who's not in it now, and all of a sudden their system fails, we've got to have the capacity to be able to say, of course, you need to join the system. Don't spend $40,000 with a raise system. You know,
What do you
and I'll try to
consider
summarize it
important?
more, because I feel like there's a lot of good questions regarding this topic that I could provide a better breakdown on, so you can see what's your extra under both of these scenarios. What's the number coming from? Where's the extra? And then we move 20. What's the number coming from? What's the extra? What do we think that would facilitate? Because I feel like that's a theme here with the question. So let's do some nice breakdowns so you can all see that.
I have a second question too. Based on what you said. In the water district, you were not hooked up to the system. You still had to pay a benefit unit. Now, in your system, if the property owner decides, well, I don't want to join this system, does he pay a benefit unit?
So you can see we're designing a contiguous system. So the idea is that's the district. If you're outside the district, you would pay no benefit unit because there's no pipe going by your house. If you're in the middle of it and a pipe goes by your house, that's the same situation. So that's why the town has done such outreach to this core group. But if you are not in the district, you are not paying a benefit unit. So and that's typically a benefit unit is your capital cost recovery. And then the dollars per gallon you spend, that funds the operation and maintenance of the system. And so if you're served, but then never put a drop of wastewater, say for some reason you had a property that you just no one was in, not what we want to see, but there's a cost that's the base capital cost because you were served. But then there's also a cost of your gallons per dollar per gallon, just like your water bill. Obviously, if you're not discharging anything, you're using any water, you're not paying that cheap.
But there is a benefit you.
Well, the bill would be broken up in two different ways, which if you're not in the district, you're not having a
But
benefit.
I'm saying if you're in the district and you're not hooked up, you're still gonna pay something.
The health department would similarly to, the yes. is the answer. Yes. But also from the legal perspective, the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater rules, if you are in a service area of wastewater, you must pay. And it's surprising, they sometimes let that go with water, but typically right now, if you were to put a district in, they're very adamant about people connecting to water as well. So that's just the state of the health department rules. I think here to here, do you agree?
Do we have any idea how many of those 13 parcels are agreeing with this, or how many are disagreeing?
I don't know that exact number.
Roundabout, like, I mean.
I presume the majority,
The
vast
feedback we've
majority.
gotten is very,
Yeah, are into it. What do you guys think? Maybe? So maybe people are still figuring it out. This tonight is a big part of that, to see what it might be. And these guys have put a document together too, that can be looked at more closely with, really specific engineering information and overlays. Good presentation. Yeah.
I live on Pasco 50 for my property. I need to hook up this, who pays that cost? Do I have to? Or is there
so if you were in the original district, this is another great example of just having this conversation and making sure we're bringing this conversation to the town at large and not just a small portion. The general feedback we've gotten is the interest is very limited to a small area. But during that phase, anyone who's connected, that entire process is paid for. If later on down the road, someone later on decides to join, the work that happened on their property would be their cost, unless in a future phase, your entire street says, wow, we're having a problem here for whatever reason. That absolutely the town would go back, observing the comments made that we are in a very wonderful spot right now with funding. But there might not be as much funding, but to try to facilitate funding to say that we're going to expand the system this street, the street's got failing systems, really needs assistance, and go and pursue grant funding to support the expansion of that street.
If this gentleman or someone else finds themselves living in a property that's adjacent to the proposed district, and today they think, well, maybe I'm considering it, they want to come back in a week or two and say, hey, could I be in the district? I'm not in it now, but I'm adjacent to it. Would we look to accommodate them? Place them in the district?
The shape of this district and who's in it and who's not is, this is the feasibility study stage. This feedback is essential because if there's parcels that are interested or at least asking to be considered, want to see the dollar value, what would be the monthly charge, that's the feedback we need. It's locked down in that map plan report. So it's this piece of time in between in the district formation phase where that's so much what the town and the engineers need to hear is who would want to be in this, because if there are contiguous parcels, there is absolutely no reason, especially if it's practically right by the parcel to connect. It makes a lot of sense, especially with short distance parcels. Serving someone like a mile over there, that is not going to be cost effective. That would be quite additional cost. Serving contiguous parcels is cost effective.
So if anyone's not contiguous to the proposed district and does want to be considered, it's a good time to mention it to these guys. They could put the dotted line and extend it out and really part.
I would think that anybody who is in the district, school district, did not hook up, the paid cost benefit price, would realize a higher value for the house on sale.
That's what's generally found. Yes, absolutely.
No, not increasing assessment.
Yes.
And for people who are landlords downtown, I don't know if 2 rental units per property, or 3, but you get 1 more rental unit. You're permitted should you tie into the system as well, which is nice to hear for those of us who want to have a few more people downtown.
I just wanted to thank you for the work you've done until now. I love your nice time and just understand more about what's involved with this. And I really want to thank you. So thank you very much.
I just want to say that this is being videoed, and people who couldn't make it tonight or you want to review what was said tonight, it will be on my point of views probably tomorrow.
And will the presentation itself be available?
Presentation, the report is electronically in the town, the final version. And also, we've taken back, we will provide a really nice succinct breakdown of 13, 5, and 20. With 1 page that shows where that is, because I think that's a really common question. And I want to make sure you all have a really understanding how to do that.
If you just put the map.
And again, so starting tomorrow, you go to the Town of Pine Plains website and you can look at the full reports, details, photos, maps, images.
It doesn't go down.
All that flow rate.
I know.
We are starting tomorrow.
No one else have any more comments yet? Very much.
Hi, Carl. Hi, Carl. Talk to you soon. Call me.